I never imagined I'd find myself sharing my story on a platform like this, but I'm out of options and desperately hoping someone out there has answers. Even as I type this, my hands are trembling with fear and confusion. Let me introduce myself first. My name is Claire, and I'm a 22-year-old graduate student. I live with my younger brother, Ethan, and our cat, Whiskers, in a small town just outside of Salem, Massachusetts. Our home is a charming two-bedroom cottage surrounded by a dense forest. It's usually a serene and comforting place, but recently, it has become the setting of a nightmare. The incident began about 10 days ago. I was up late working on my thesis, my eyes stinging from staring at the computer screen for hours. I glanced at the clock. It was exactly 3:33 a.m. Just as I was about to shut my laptop and call it a night, a chill ran down my spine, and I heard a faint tapping at the window behind me. I turned slowly, my heart racing. Outside, barely illuminated by the moonlight, stood an old man. His appearance was ghastly thin, almost skeletal, with stringy white hair that framed a gaunt, pale face. His eyes were completely white, void of any pupils or irises. They stared at me unblinkingly. "Ethan," I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. My brother was already awake, standing in his bedroom doorway with a look of confusion and fear on his face. Whiskers hissed and darted under the couch. "There's a man outside," I whispered. Ethan and I crept closer to the window, our breaths fogging up the glass. The old man didn't move. He just stood there, his eyes boring into us. "We should call the police," Ethan suggested, but his voice wavered. I nodded and grabbed my phone, dialing 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher assured me that officers were on their way, but it felt like an eternity before we saw the flashing lights of the police car. As soon as the police pulled up, the old man turned and vanished into the woods. The officers searched the area but found no trace of him. They took our statement, advising us to keep our doors locked and call them immediately if he returned. The next night, I made sure to lock every door and window before going to bed. I even left the lights on, hoping to deter any unwanted visitors. But at precisely 3:33 a.m., the tapping returned. This time, the old man was standing closer to the house, almost pressed against the window. His eyes seemed even more vacant, if that was possible, and his mouth was twisted into a sinister grin. I felt a wave of nausea as I stared at him. Over the next few nights, the pattern repeated. The old man would appear at exactly 3:33 a.m., each time getting closer to the house. We called the police every night, but by the time they arrived, he was always gone. They began to think we were imagining things, and I could see the skepticism in their eyes. Ethan and I tried everything to keep him away. We installed new locks, set up motion sensor lights, and even borrowed a friend's dog to stay with us. But nothing worked. The old man continued his nightly visits, each one more unnerving than the last. A few nights ago, he made it to our front porch. Ethan and I were in the living room, clutching each other in fear, when we heard the tapping on the front door. We stared at the door, too terrified to move. Whiskers arched his back and hissed, his fur standing on end. "Should we open it?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "No," I replied, my voice shaking. "We don't know what he wants or what he's capable of." We sat there, frozen, as the tapping continued. It felt like hours before it finally stopped. We didn't sleep at all that night, jumping at every sound. Last night was the worst. At exactly 3:33 a.m., the old man didn't just tap on the door, he began to speak. His voice was low and raspy, barely audible through the door, but the words chilled me to the bone. Let me in. I need to come in, he repeated, over and over. I grabbed a kitchen knife and stood by the door, my heart pounding in my chest. Ethan held a baseball bat, his face pale with fear. We both knew we couldn't let him in, but we also felt helpless against his persistence. The police arrived once more, but by then, the old man was gone. They left us with more reassurances, but no solutions. Today, we spent hours researching any possible explanation for what's happening. We found an old legend about a man named Samuel Grayson who was accused of witchcraft in the 1700s and was executed in the very forest behind our house. His ghost was said to haunt the area, seeking revenge on the descendants of those who wronged him. At first, it seemed like just a spooky story, but now I'm not so sure. It's now 3 o'clock, and I can feel the dread building as the minutes tick by. Ethan and I are sitting in the living room, every light in the house on, weapons in hand. Whiskers is curled up in my lap, unusually calm. I don't know what will happen tonight. The old man has been getting closer every night, and I fear tonight he might finally get inside. I'll update if I can, but if you don't hear from me again, please remember our story and be cautious of who or what you let into your life. Update 3:45 a.m. Something is terribly wrong. The house has gone eerily silent, and the air feels thick and oppressive. It's like the very atmosphere is alive with malevolence. I can hear faint whispers all around us, but I can't make out the words. Ethan and I are huddled together, every instinct screaming at us to run, but we have nowhere to go. The front door is shaking now, like something is trying to force its way in. I can see a shadow moving just outside the window, growing larger and more distinct. I'm posting this now because I don't know if I'll get another chance. If anyone reads this, please be careful. There are things in this world that defy explanation, and once they set their sights on you, there may be no escape. I can hear him now, his voice louder and more insistent. Let me in. I need to come in. The doorknob is turning slowly, and I can feel the cold seeping through the door. This might be the end. Pray for us. The moment I posted my last update, the doorknob stopped turning. The house fell into an even deeper silence, as if holding its breath. Ethan and I stood frozen, waiting for the next move. We heard a soft creak from the living room window, followed by a faint scraping sound. We turned to see the old man's face pressed against the glass, his eyes locked onto mine. His mouth moved, but no sound came out. He was mouthing the same words over and over. Let me in. I felt a cold sweat break out on my forehead. Ethan, eyes wide with terror, backed away slowly. Claire, what do we do? He whispered, his voice trembling. I had no answer. All I knew was that we couldn't let him inside. Suddenly, Whiskers hissed and leapt from my lap, darting towards the hallway. At the same moment, the whispers grew louder, more insistent, and the temperature in the room plummeted. I could see my breath in the air, each exhale a small cloud of white. Stay together, I told Ethan, trying to keep my voice steady. We need to stay together and stay strong. We retreated to the center of the room, clutching our weapons, our eyes never leaving the old man's face. The scratching at the window grew more frantic, and I could see the glass beginning to crack under the pressure. The whispers turned into a low, mournful wail, filling the room with an overwhelming sense of sorrow and anger. I felt a tug on my heart, as if the very essence of the house was being pulled towards the old man. Then, just as the glass seemed ready to shatter, there was a blinding flash of light. The old man's face twisted in agony, and he let out a silent scream. The whispers stopped abruptly, and the oppressive atmosphere lifted. When the light faded, the old man was gone. The house was silent once more, but this time it felt like a normal silence. No whispers, no cold, no malevolent presence. Ethan and I stood there, stunned and trembling. "What just happened?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," I replied, my mind racing. "But I think it's over. For now." We spent the rest of the night huddled together in the living room, too scared to move or sleep. When the first light of dawn broke through the windows, we finally felt a semblance of safety. Moments later, our parents arrived. They had received our panicked call earlier and drove all night to get to us. Seeing their worried faces brought a sense of relief I hadn't felt in days. We told them everything: the nightly visits, the old man, the final confrontation. Our parents, though skeptical at first, couldn't deny the fear in our eyes or the scratch marks on the door and windows. Dad took charge, deciding it was best to leave the house for a while. We packed our bags and drove to a nearby hotel, leaving behind the place that had been our home but had become a source of nightmares. That day, I did more research, determined to find out what had happened. I came across an old book on local legends and curses. One passage stood out: "Spirits wronged in life may seek entry to the world of the living. Denied entry, they grow more desperate, but light, pure, intense light, can banish them back to their realm." It wasn't much, but it was something. The flash of light must have been what saved us. Maybe the old man, Samuel Grayson, was seeking vengeance for his wrongful execution, and our refusal to let him in forced him to reveal his true, malevolent nature. In the following days, we returned to the house in daylight, packing up our belongings to move elsewhere. As we were about to leave for the last time, I found a small, old pendant on the floor by the front door. It was silver, with intricate carvings that looked ancient. I had never seen it before, and neither had Ethan or my parents. I picked it up, feeling a strange sense of connection. I decided to keep it, a reminder of the ordeal we had survived. We moved to a new town, far from the forest and the memories of that haunting figure. Life gradually returned to normal, but we never forgot. We never let our guard down completely. Months later, I received an email from a local historian who had heard about our story. He had read my posts and wanted to share something with me. According to him, Samuel Grayson's spirit had been rumored to haunt the area for centuries, but it was believed that his spirit could be laid to rest by a descendant of one of the people who had wronged him. I read the email with a mix of relief and apprehension. Could we finally put this to rest? The historian suggested we return the pendant to Samuel's grave, a gesture of peace and reconciliation. Ethan and I decided to do it. We returned to the forest, finding the old, overgrown grave of Samuel Grayson. As we laid the pendant on the grave, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. That night, for the first time in months, I slept peacefully, free from nightmares. We don't know if Samuel's spirit is truly at rest now, but the old man has not returned. Our lives have moved forward, but the experience changed us. We learned that some doors, once opened, reveal more than we could ever imagine. And some spirits, no matter how desperate, can be laid to rest with a simple act of understanding and peace. If you enjoyed this story, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more spine-chilling tales. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest videos. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so leave a comment below and share your scary encounters. Also, consider joining the Fear Frequencies community for exclusive perks and early access to new content.